Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Paul joined by Robert Ziggy Ziegler. And Ziggy, that's about as good as it gets for a season opener in the NFL. 27-20, the Chiefs beat the Ravens in the rematch of the AFC Championship game. A little slow at first, or actually right out the gate. Awesome start for both offenses. They get going with touchdown drives early. And then it kind of slows down for most of the game. And all of a sudden here in the fourth quarter, just a really fun Ravens comeback. Some huge plays were made. And by a toe, as Mike Tirico said, by a toe, Isaiah Likely is out of bounds. Do you see John Harbaugh was going to go for two? Had that been a touchdown from Likely at the end there, and Baltimore was going to try and pull out the win in Arrowhead, I wouldn't have blamed him. But just a fantastic start to the season. And what was your biggest takeaway from tonight's game?
Yeah, don't let the final score of this deceive you, right? Last year with the Lions, it was a 1-point game. This was a 7-point game. This was exactly as close. Mm-hmm. And the way this game played out and of how close it was, I will admit it, I was totally wrong. I thought this Ravens team might struggle. I thought this Chiefs offense might get off to a slow start with how many new pieces. With how good these teams are week one, I would be shocked if these are not the two best teams in the AFC. This was an unbelievable performance from both of them. And there's no doubt in my mind that it wasn't close because both teams are bad, or both teams are mediocre, or both teams are good. Both of these teams are great.
I completely agree with you. I was watching it, and by the middle of that fourth quarter, I was thinking to myself, like, this is this could be the AFC Championship game again easily. They just both looked awesome, and on top of that, they should only get better here. We'll start with Kansas City because they won the game. Not the most dominant night from Patrick Mahomes. He had his moments. But what I thought was a big takeaway here is that this Chiefs offense, for as much as they struggled last year, and that was a talking point, all the new weapons that are coming in here. Xavier Worthy, it didn't do a ton, but when he did touch the ball, had a receiving touchdown, had the rushing touchdown. I thought Rashee Rice looked really good tonight. I have him as a fantasy player, so I was pretty happy. He ended the night with 7 catches for 103 yards. He led Kansas City, and Travis Kelce, kind of quiet. I don't think that this is anything to worry about if you're a fantasy manager or just a fan of his. Just a quiet night for Travis. Still had that really nice play earlier in the first half where he got open, and always him and Mahomes always seem to find a way to connect on those scrambling plays. But my main takeaway for Kansas City was the defense should be very good again, but this offense, when they get Hollywood Brown back too, I think they have a chance to really click.
Oh, do you know last year how many touchdowns the Chiefs had from outside the red zone?
No, how many?
1. You know how many touchdowns they had tonight from outside the red zone?
Well, they had. Definitely.
It was just 1. It was the Xavier Worthy rushing touchdown.
Oh, was it the rushing? Were they in the red zone on the reception?
Oh no, you're right. They weren't. Both those are from outside 20 yards. So they had 2. You're right. That was a 35-yard reception. So, Patrick Mahomes, I think the way that people think of him, the way they think of the Chiefs because of the Travis Kelce era was big, big, big plays.
Yep.
And that was totally absent from the offense last year. Occasionally they'd have big plays, but you weren't getting these long touchdowns. The fact that they had 2 this game, both coming from a guy who's making his first career start in the NFL, a rookie, right?
Yep, a rookie.
There's a lot to be excited about with this Chiefs offense. And as you said, they were missing the guy who everyone had penned in as their number 1 receiver this offseason, Hollywood Brown, who should just add even more explosiveness.
Oh, yeah. Hollywood Brown is awesome. He's kind of been underrated / I'd say forgotten a lot of times throughout his career. But yeah, if you add him in with the way they're going to be able to utilize Xavier Worthy, just as a weapon, regardless, you want to run the ball with him, you want to throw it to him on screens, however you want to send him out there. On that reverse, when he ran into the end zone, I kind of did a double take. I looked back at the TV, I was watching with a couple of people. I was like, holy crap, this guy. I know he set the record at the combine, but you see that game speed, it's just different. So by using him, I think Rashee Rice is going to have a really big year. Maybe it won't be like explosive, but he had a lot of big timely catches tonight, just carved Baltimore up, just really on slant routes a lot of the times. There's so many ways, and they said it on the broadcast, but with all these weapons now, the field just you get to utilize the entire field if you're Kansas City. And it's going to be tough to beat them. I mean, I really like the three-peat chances from watching them night one.
Yeah, it is. One more thing about Xavier Worthy, because he's obviously the standout player of the game. it doesn't matter how good an athlete you are. It doesn't matter how good you were in college, whatever. It is so hard to come into the National Football League and out athlete other players.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, right? This Ravens defense is one of the most athletic, talented, well coached defenses in the NFL. The fact that he was able to do that repeatedly in game one means there could be big things coming from him for the rest of the season.
And a big part of this offseason for Kansas City was what they were going to do with Chris Jones, what was going to happen with Snead, L'Jarius Sneed, and they wind up trading Snead and bring back Chris Jones. And you could tell right away, like what a great choice that was. He only finished with 3 tackles and 1 sack on the night, but Chris Jones was in the backfield basically the entire night. When they brought in, I think Rosengarten, right, came in at right tackle the first play he was in, and Jones just basically humiliated the rookie, forces a fumble. Kansas City gets it and gets a field goal out of that possession. The entire night when you watched him, in some ways, it was a little reminiscent of Aaron Donald to me, where when I would watch Aaron Donald, every single play, he would just run right past someone and be in the backfield. And I was getting that a little bit from Chris Jones tonight. He was just a monster. And I think every Chiefs fan is looking back at that re-signing and saying, thank God we got him, because he completely changes that defense.
No, there are very few players, not very few. There is nobody like Chris Jones. You can put Chris Jones on the inside, you can put him on the outside. And it's easy to say, like, yeah, he's a good defensive player. He should be fine on the outside. Folks, he weighs 65 more pounds than Micah Parsons. This guy is the size of the offensive tackle, and he can take double teams on the inside. And then if you put someone invulnerable, you move him around. If you're the Chiefs, you keep putting him in different places. You put stress on that offensive line. And like you said, even though he wasn't getting a lot of sacks, going up against Lamar Jackson, he was still able to make an impact. And that is hard to do.
Yeah. So even though tonight it kind of faded as the game went on, Kansas City, and then Baltimore was making that comeback, it was a great statement win. I really think that if you're a Kansas City fan, you can't be much happier than beating the Ravens in this rematch game. You know, Baltimore was circling it the entire offseason. Like, that's just such a great start to your season. And when we're talking about the 1 seed later in the year, who knows where we are in November, December, but this could be a game that we look back on and go, all right, that determined it. And that's why the road's going through Arrowhead here. So just a huge win for the Chiefs, who people were texting me all night saying, like, I'm so sick and tired of Kansas City. Like, this can't happen again. And I was just writing back like, well, it might. Like, they look pretty good. This could wind up being, if the offense gets going, the best of all these Chiefs teams that we've seen somehow, some way. Let's go over to Baltimore real quick, because it was a thrilling conclusion to the game. And Lamar, towards the end, Lamar's missing a lot of throws tonight, like straight up. Even throughout the game, he was missing a lot. Whether it was deep throws, whether it was just little quick out routes, he was just a little bit off passing. Rushing, he was all over the place. 16 carries for 122 yards for Lamar. And there's a couple times where I'm just looking at the television saying, please get down. And I'm sure every Ravens fan on earth is saying, please just go down. And Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth are talking about him, not taking hits in the AFC Championship game. And maybe he was trying to prove something. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, week 1, just please go down until it matters. But he was, for the most part, a very good night for Lamar. A couple big mistakes, mostly that miss of Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely on the first and goal situations there at the end of the game. But what was your takeaway from Lamar's performance in his first game since the AFC Championship?
I'm sure people were sick of hearing this on the broadcast, so I promise I'll only say it once.
Please only say it once.
It's hard not to look at Lamar Jackson's weight loss in this offseason and see it making a difference. He's playing 15 pounds lighter than last year, 30 pounds lighter than the year before. And he just looked so quick out there on the field. Right. I mean, you said it, 16 carries for 122 yards. That's averaging almost 8 yards a carry. I don't know why that made him decide that it's time to lower the shoulder and charge into guys. But Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense are going to be fine. Now, I will say you're right that the throws were a problem. Well, everybody's going to remember the Isaiah Likely toe out of bounds. I think many fewer people are going to remember an equally significant play. Just, I think 1 or 2 plays before where he missed a wide open Zay Flowers.
The play before.
Yeah, that's going to get lost of how close this was. And that's unfortunate. But I don't think that's too much to worry about. If you're a Ravens fan, I think you should sit back and say, look, The defense did a decent job against Kansas City, about as good as you could hope for week 1. Derrick Henry, the stat sheet 46 yards isn't going to stand out to people, but the Derrick Henry experiment is going to work in Baltimore. He got a touchdown when you needed a few yards. You could give the ball to him. Like, that was successful. The defense was really good. Roquan Smith is still that guy. And the edge rushers around him, everybody, including myself, was talking about how much they lost this offseason. But with guys developing, particularly their young edge rushers, Odafe Owe, David Ojabo, like, there's a lot to be excited about. This Ravens team looked good, and I think they will only look better as Lamar gets more comfortable with these receivers and some of the younger guys on defense continue to get better.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. If I were a Ravens fan, I'm watching the game tonight. It kind of sucks because it finishes up and you just go, can we finally just beat this team? All the AFC teams have to just be sitting back going after each crushing loss to Kansas City. Like, eventually we got to get them at some point. And there always seems to be something new, whether it's, the 13-second game for Buffalo or just by a toe tonight. If you're Baltimore, Zay Flowers, I felt bad for Zay. It felt like the entire first half, every time he touched the ball, they were saying on the broadcast, and he's trying to make up for that AFC Championship game fumble. It's like by the fourth time or third time, I was going, all right, like, we get it. He fumbled in the game. Let's move on here. But a big takeaway I had for Baltimore too was just that this team is going to get better and better and better. The offensive line, Baltimore had 7 penalties, only one more than Kansas City. But it felt like the Baltimore penalties often came in big situations, whether it was like a big Lamar run or they had a pass interference, remember, that would have put them down closer to the goal line on Zay Flowers in the first half, but got called back. So many illegal formations.
Clearly, we're going to see a whole lot of those this weekend. Clearly, the NFL is
strict.
That.
Oh, yeah. It was the one drive, they had 3, I think, like the first or second drive of the game for Baltimore. But I'm just watching this team thinking, okay, a lot of new pieces on the O-line. Defense, you said it this whole offseason. That was your whole thing on the Ravens, was new players coming in. Will they be able to adjust to it? If this is the performance that they have week 1 in Kansas City, especially as the game went on, got better, I think they'll be just fine. And by the end of the season, this team they'll be a problem. That's something I wrote down earlier in the game. Like, Baltimore will be a problem this year. How about Isaiah Likely? 9 receptions, 111 yards, a touchdown, and what, an inch away from having a 2-touchdown night, saving the day. Like, he was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Isaiah Likely has been on a lot of people's lists of breakout candidates for some time. The only problem has been he's been behind Mark Andrews. And Mark Andrews had an uncharacteristically bad night. 2 receptions, 14 yards, but it was worse than that. There was that horrible play where he lost his footing and cost the Ravens a big opportunity. And it was good to see Likely take a step forward. I mean, I think you have to worry a little bit about the fact that if you take out Isaiah Likely and 138-yard Rashad Bateman catch, you had very little production from these receivers. But on the other hand, Isaiah Likely stepped up. There were a lot of opportunities. And if he's able to be a big contributor, this could be a huge year for him.
Yeah, it didn't feel like Baltimore was really taking many chances until they had to late in the game. And that was something that I was almost like yelling at the TV, like, come on, let's get moving. Justice Hill had a really nice game. I thought he looked good. And Keaton Mitchell, when he comes back, man, if he fills in for Justice Hill or they wind up making it a trio in the backfield, like, they got a lot of weapons in Baltimore. But I was kind of hoping that they were going to attack a little bit more down the field. I'm not saying just launch it all over the place, but at least try and get a little bit of a diverse attack going. But yeah, no, the Baltimore offense, for as much attention as Lamar deserves and gets as 2-time MVP now, Derrick Henry coming in, those other pieces of Likely, Mark Andrews, who will be better, Justice Hill, who looked quick, when Keaton Mitchell comes back, Zay Flowers, I thought looked good for the most part. He should have had the game-tying touchdown. There's a lot of weapons on the Baltimore offense too, beyond just Lamar Jackson. And I'd be really excited if I were both of these teams. Even though it was a loss for the Ravens, I think both Kansas City and Baltimore can walk away feeling really good about what they have for this upcoming year.
Yeah, I mean, we said it off the top, right? I will be shocked if these are not the 2 best teams in the AFC. And I could be wrong, right? Maybe Buffalo's good. Maybe Cincinnati is good. But the level that these teams set tonight with this performance is so high. The gauntlet's been thrown, right?
You know what, too? It's because in the second, third quarter, like it was kind of sloppy football. But then towards the end, maybe we're just prisoners of the moment here because there's such an awesome end to it. But there was like let's not forget it was sloppy for a long period of this game. But then at the end, like these two teams, I'm not sure how many there are in the league that can flip the switch like that and turn it on when they need to. And Kansas City really didn't do that tonight. But Baltimore, you kind of saw when they got going there in the fourth, they're tough to stop. So I think both these teams are only going to get better and better. And yeah, what an awesome start to the year. We're back tomorrow night with Packers and Eagles and the Sunday slate. We were just talking the whole week about how awesome this week one set of games are, and I can't wait. If this is any indication, what an awesome start. All right, Ziggy, you ready for bed? It's late here on the East Coast.
Yeah, I've got to teach a class in 7.5 hours. So
Yeah,
we'll see how that
this
goes.
is getting late here, but awesome game, awesome kickoff to the season. Chiefs 27, Ravens 20. We'll be back again tomorrow around 6:00 ish with Packers Eagles. We're going live before that game. We'll have a reaction afterwards, and then we prepare for Sunday, week one, and it starts. It starts. We're here. NFL season's begun.
Football's back.
Yep. See you soon.